Fucking technology, man.
You don't have
How are you?
to.
One more for you,
Okay.
because we talked about Simmel, our boy,
Oh, Terry.
and so stand by.
Story of two Chicago police detectives who stumble across a big drug ring and then bust it and then are mysteriously pulled off the case by their department acting under instructions of the FBI, of all people. But these are stubborn cops, and they continue their investigation until they discover that a corrupt CIA official is actually behind the drug smuggling. The movie stars a newcomer named Steven Seagal, a martial arts expert who's being promoted by Warner Brothers as their big new action star. Well, he does a lot of his own stunts all right, like this one. His police partner is played by Pam Grier, herself an action star from the 1970s, who has her best role in a long time.
Excuse me, but I just had to stop and tell you that you look like the sun setting on the waterfall in springtime, baby.
And you got 5 seconds. 3 are up.
Say, you ain't got to be like... Hey, you know, like Lady Cotton and your boyfriends too, you dig? But you have a nice day just the same.
The movie sets its violence in a lot of offbeat locations, including a grocery store.
Get down.
And a parking garage. Above the Law was co-written and directed by Andrew Davis, who is something of an expert at action thrillers. He's the man who made Code of Silence, which is still the best of all of Chuck Norris's pictures. And he does a confident job this time of showcasing Steven Seagal, who is tall, dark, handsome, and very impressive when he personally throws his victims around in hand-to-hand combat. This guy spent about 10 years as a karate instructor and, as it says in the press release, bodyguard to heads of state before making this movie. The movie is not just a simple thriller, though. It involves not only drug smuggling, but also Central American refugees, police department politics, and Seagal's home life as a happily married father whose family is in great danger. The movie has perhaps 50% too much plot, but it's slick, exciting, and ambitious, and I did like the way it used so many offbeat character actors to create a level of realism underneath that fantasy character played by Steven Seagal.
Yeah, well, he didn't turn me on particularly because he is so heroic, it's almost like he's riding around on an invisible giant horse above the crowd. I mean, you know, they talk about Clint Eastwood. One of the great things about Clint Eastwood is he doesn't give off or know how cool he is when he's in his pictures. He's just plunging ahead doing his job. The way this movie has been structured to feature this guy, he's aware, everyone's aware that he's somebody special. And I didn't like that. In addition, I think there's another thing that you hit on that I didn't like, and that is when you said 50% too much plot. I mean, they've got everything thrown in here. The stuff that did interest me is this film makes a lot of accusations about the CIA and drug smuggling. If they had just winnowed the plot down to that aspect, I think it could have been a sharp little thriller.
Well, it's an ambitious movie, but I want to go back to what you said about Steven Seagal, because I agree with you that they treat him like he's somebody special.
Right.
But I don't agree with you that Clint Eastwood didn't do that, especially at the beginning. If you go back to A Fistful of Dollars, and for a few dollars more, he's playing this super character, this mythical character who strides on a different plane than ordinary men, and I think they're deliberately doing the same thing here with this character. Later on, there's time to let him play a funkier person like Dirty Harry, but right now he's got to be this kind of larger-than-life person, and I think it works as an introduction in a self-conscious attempt to manufacture a movie star, which is what they're trying to do.
No, I don't know. To me, I was much more aware of it this time than I was with Eastwood. Lit on the thriller Above the Law with Steven Seagal. Roger found him impressive? I did not.
All right. You were laughing all the way through that.
Well, the thing is, I don't remember specifically this program, but I do remember that they liked the movie and that they were basically saying that they were manufacturing a star.
Right.
And that kind of buys into or plays into, there was this theory floating around the hallways of Warner Brothers that that Steven Seagal had been a manufactured guy, and that it was
Hmm.
somehow a an effort initiated by Michael Ovitz with Bob and Terry in tow. And the theory was, one of the stories was, and I'll tell you privately who was pushing this theory. Um, but one of the theories was that they were together because these people used to socialize. I know Bob and
Yeah.
Terry used to
Yeah.
socialize, and I'm sure Michael Ovitz probably
Of
socialized with these
course. Of
people.
course.
Um, but the theory was that they were somehow lamenting the old days when Louis B. Mayer or Jack Warner or Daryl Zanuck or Harry Cohn, any of the people
Hmm.
could actually create a movie star. Anoint somebody, and you are now a movie star, and you send them to the right charm school, because that's really what it is. You send them to charm school, you teach them how to act, how to behave themselves in public and in on the set, and you give them the right material to work with, and they will become big stars. And when you look at Steven Seagal, had come from nowhere. Now, he was Michael Ovitz's trainer. He was Michael Ovitz's trainer. I
Right.
believe that's true. And Michael Ovitz did send him to Sean Connery to teach Sean Connery some Aikido moves. He wasn't a karate guy, as they said. He was in Aikido, which is more slapping,
Right.
and um, he was sent over to Sean Connery to teach Sean Connery some moves for some movie he was doing. And Michael Ovitz was Sean Connery's agent. And in the process of their training, he actually accidentally broke Sean Connery's wrist. Did you know that? That's a honest to God
So I've
story.
heard the story. I've heard
No,
the
but it's
story.
true. It's he did. I heard it from Sean Connery that
Mhm.
Steven Skull did break his wrist while they were doing a training thing, and it wasn't like a malicious thing. It's just a hazard. Um, Man, it's so funny, and I remember that. Look how thin Steven is in that movie, but
So
still, he was jowly. If you look at his face, if you go back and look at a close up, he was always kind of jowly. The jowls didn't quite fit the rest of that slender body of his, and of
right.
course, as he started to get bigger, became even more jowly. But God, that was a good movie, and under he had great direction from Andy Davis. They certainly put him in the hands of the right person when
So
they did that
today,
movie.
today we can't get away from director Andy. Did Dennis Ferkler cut this too? I wonder.
I don't
Uh,
know. I'll look it up, but I
so
don't
he's
know.
looking it up.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack with this. One, I agree with Siskel. I think the CIA angle is the strongest plot element, and they should have stuck with it thoroughly. I also love the casting in this, particularly Greer. And then there is, there it is funny when they talk about the press release and the clip of that bodyguard for heads of state and all those things that were worked into the mysticism of or the Seagalness that worked its way into becoming the Seagalness of it all. So it is interesting. Um,
That's a great adjective, Seagalness. I mean, it really is.
well, I mean, it's
No,
I'm kind of curious what the budget was on it because it's in the days where you could, he was a pretty safe bet, because Seagal kind of topped out at like the 60 million mark later. Uh,
it was edited by Michael Brown.
mm,
Um, and I'm looking up his other credits. He did Jaws: The Revenge. I don't know which number Jaws that would be.
four.
He did a lot of television stuff.
All right.
And he has something he's producing something that's in development right now. So I mean, this movie was 40 years ago, so he's still around. That's a good thing. I'm glad that he has survived as long as he has.
So we both worked with Seagal, you more extensively than me, but he is a character and he is entertaining in his own way.
Yeah.
And were you at Warner Brothers when they did this Above the Law?
No, no, I
No,
wasn't.
this is before.
This was like 1988, I think, or
Yeah,
87. I was at Lorimar at the time. Well, yeah, I was at Warner's, but I was at Lorimar.
right.
Um, the 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 thing about Steven Seagal, was that the movies all made money, but it was because they only spent very little to make them. They
Yeah.
were in good hands, and Mike Tadros might have produced this. Do you don't
Mm.
remember Mike Tadros? He was a line producer. I wouldn't be surprised if he produced this. Um, but he was really good at getting things to a number. And the problem with Seagal, everything that Seagal was doing, he was only really good for a box office take. We're talking about 40 years ago. So, and
Right.
40 and 30 years ago, where a box office take of $60 million was actually really, really good. It wasn't, like 100 million was like unbelievable, but $60 million was a good take if you were spending 20 million to make them. Okay. I doubt this movie cost 20 million to make. This movie probably, I would guess, I don't know what the budget was, but I'm thinking 15 to make it. Seagal probably didn't get any money at all. Um, but the problem with Stevens movies then were that after Under Siege, they started to spend more money to make them.
Hmm.
But they were still only bringing in, Under Siege did really, really well. But then it went back to where they were bringing in 60 million at the box office. And the problem was that they were spending too much money to make them and they weren't getting the return.
What do you suppose? Do you think this script was written for Steven Seagal, or do you think this was a script that Warner Brothers had that they
You know,
converted
I
into Seagal?
I don't know, but we did hoard scripts.
What
We
was the building across from the main admin building? That little building on the corner on the other side of that gate, the executive gate. What was in that building? It
Oh,
was like
that
an
was the
accountant,
drugstore. Oh, well, the second floor was theatrical production management, and
something like that.
the first floor was the budgeting and estimating department. Yeah.
So I bounced in there once into Ken Goldstein's office because he was based in there,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ken worked with me. Yeah.
and he was always fun to talk to because he was very point blank about things. Big music lover, and that movie came up, and I remember he was well on Dudley Ground was the one. I remember him telling me like we had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to put a plane on a gimbal and shoot him like he's flying it because Seagal's angle was. How is my audience going to know I'm flying the plane? And their argument was, well, when the plane's engine shuts off, you climb out. He's like, no, not good enough. But I remember one of the things they were talking about when we were doing Glimmerman, because I was there for that. That was before I worked with Seagal, though. Glimmerman, there was like, they called it the Girdle Man.
Yeah, I can see. Oh, well, and then before that, but it might have been around Glimmerman time when
Mm.
they added an extra grip with the chin light. Do you remember
That's
that?
right. That's right. They had a chin. Oh my God, I
They had
forgot.
this little Twinkie light. Now in old time movies, like especially in Gone with the Wind, they used it. They'd have a Twinkie light to brighten up an actor's eyes, and I know they
Yeah.
they did it to great effect with Vivian Lee. To look at those green eyes that Vivian Lee had in Gone with the Wind. But they would have a Twinkie light, and it would usually be above the lens. They had a chin light under the lens to fill because he was, in addition to being jowl, I guess as a result of
Uh,
being jowly, he was getting a double chin. Not that I'm anybody to talk about it. I've got a total turkey neck going,
well,
but
we're talking about the technical side of covering
we
him
but we had
on screen.
the chin light there, which today they would probably use visual effects to just kind of soften,
Hmm.
the lines and stuff.
I love that story though about being in the undeadly ground screening and you get up because he's getting the weapons. You're like, okay, I know the rhythm here, and you had seen the movie,
No,
so
no, I hadn't seen the
oh, you
movie.
hadn't seen it by then?
No,
I
I
thought for
read the
sure.
script. No, 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 I read the
I
script,
thought
but I
maybe you
hadn't
had to
seen the
sign
movie.
off on it.
Oh,
So,
listen, I snuck into that screening. I wasn't supposed to be there.
uh,
And they had that screening at those theaters that were
yeah,
Moore Park and Van Nuys. And
right.
they had half of the theaters were on the north side of Moore Park, and the other two were on the south side of Moore Park.
And
Okay.
everyone would go into Sully's Deli afterwards, which is gone now, and complain about what they just saw. But you get up,
So I got up because
yeah,
I could see that he already done that whole bullshit in the teepee where
yeah,
he's dancing around and all that. And
gold.
I got to tell you, the big draw for me in that movie is Joan Chen because I'm absolutely in love with Joan
Well, she
Chen.
can act. She
You
can
know,
act. So she's a draw
um,
anytime.
so anyway, I wanted to see the movie. I wanted to see this preview version, and I had to Pat Wens and I managed to get ourselves recruited into it, and we're lying to the recruiting people, telling them, "No, we work for TRW as accountants." No, I swear to God. Okay, we would do that, and we were just young enough to be the demographic that they were looking for. So I get up when he's arming himself. So he's cured himself with the mysticism,
Yeah.
smoke, and all that stuff. And I thought this is a good time to go to the men's room because it's going to be crowded when the movie's over. Okay, so so I get up and I'm like in the lower quarter of the. I was near the front. I'm in the lower quarter of that movie, and I'm
Right.
walking up the aisle, which is a ramp. I'm walking up there, and Seagal's in the back. In the back, he's like, "You're going to miss the good stuff."
Yeah. How dare you walk out of this? Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if he noticed me coming back.
Yeah, that's they notice you when you leave. Well, we've talked about this extensively about how different stars approach these screenings, how Mel Gibson was in disguise and
Yeah,
Tom
yeah,
Cruise and stuff. But what's interesting is he's giving you grief for leaving because that's what he remembers. He doesn't remember you coming back. You leaving for a split second is enough to make him. We also talked about how the overages of his directing venture on that is what led to his death, an executive decision, and that's why he
yeah,
got X'd
yeah,
out
yeah.
quick in that movie.
But you know what?
To
He did lend his presence in that movie gave it a little bit more. There was a whole quadrant of fans now
hmm
who
Yeah,
were going to go see this movie who might not have seen it otherwise. So he gave a little. This is the wrong word, but I'm about to say he gave that movie a little bit more integrity than it might have had otherwise. Although the rest of the cast was very stellar. And I remember go back at Siskel and Ebert doing their take on that movie because one of them
we
says,
should.
one of them, and I don't remember which one of the two said, imagine being so confident in a movie that you kill off a major star like Steven Seagal in the second reel. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Is this okay? Hi, my name is David Pasquesi. You may recognize me from television program or motion picture, or not. NMOSD is a central nervous system disorder, and it's pretty brutal. You can help. Go to GuthieJacksonFoundation.org and donate today to help them find a cure. GuthieJacksonFoundation.org.